Hey guys, how's it going? So today I want to show you guys how I installed my upgraded dust collection system. Now I'm starting off by putting in these inlets into this 31 gallon galvanized steel garbage can. This is going to be the debris collector or the separator, and this is going to go outside of my shop, on the back side of the shop, on the exterior of the building. The first thing I needed to do was mark where the circles were going to be for the cutouts. And I just happened to have something that was the perfect circular size. So use that to draw a line on the lid and then drill the hole with a 1/2 inch bit so I could use the jigsaw to cut out the circles that would allow me to inset the inlets into the lid of the can. One thing to keep in mind is when you do these circles or you're cutting these circles out, make sure that they are a hair smaller than the inlets. You can always expand them a little bit, but you don't want them to be too big. You want to have enough room under the lip of the inlet pieces to actually seal them. In my case, I'm going to be using hot glue as well as using some of the Gorilla Tape that I use to seal the rest of the PVC tubing to make sure there's no air leaks. After the larger holes are cut out for the plastic pieces that will be the inlets, I can then mark the screw holes that will be used to sandwich the lid between the two plastic pieces of the inlet. Now, this is going to be sealed with hot glue, and I'm going to be using some Gorilla duct tape as well, just to make sure there's no air leaks. And this works really well in my circumstance. And I like using this better than caulking, as it is easier to remove the inlet pieces if I ever need to down the line. Another thing I had to keep in mind was that these inlet pieces that go on the bottom side of the lid inside the can have an angle to them to help create a circulation inside the can and help with dust and debris separation. But these need to be facing 180 degrees opposite of each other so that they're not pulling one side and then through to the other. With the collection can ready to go, I could then move on to mounting the filter and the secondary collection bag. Now this was going to be mounted on the inside of the shop. So I started by mounting the frame that would hold the filter and the center separator, as well as the lower collection bag. Okay, so I am sorry about the really crappy audio here, but I just want to show this. So I just got the frame up. This is a test fit for the filter here. Make sure I had plenty of clearance with my heater, as well as room underneath for the bag. Now I've got a 5-gallon bucket down there. That kind of gives a reference to the size, so it should be plenty to hold like a 20-gallon bag, which the separator type deal out here for the can should catch most. But as you can see right here, this will go through the wall and come in here, and then also coming out of the can over here. Sorry about the crazy brightness here. It's super bright outside. There we go, that's a little better. So the can here, I'm gonna have the motor up here, and then the can will have a pipe coming up and it going underneath, back here behind the, get back to my thing. Sorry, this is so crappy having to swap back and forth. Coming from here down, and that will be my feed. So everything else will be outside, the filter and bag will be in here, and the feed coming out will be in here. The reason I am doing this is because this puts the air back in the shop that it pulls out from your machinery. So if I don't do this while I'm running the heat or the AC or whatever, it would pull all of that out of here and just waste a bunch of time, energy, and not be very efficient. But with this in here, it takes up a little room, but nowhere near like what my last system did, which took up a lot of room. And also, this should increase the CFM on this unit. Now, it's all a used unit. I had a friend that had it, and I know it works well. I know it works. The only difference is he had it in his house, in his shop, in his garage. I'm doing it as a split system in and out to save my air conditioning and room at the same time. So, All right, now we got to move on to taking measurements and getting stuff cut for the wall so we can figure out mounting for the motor on the outside. So these lines here I just drew, they are going to be where I need to cut out the hole for this. I just did a rough one. I did not do a like squared measurement, any of that stuff. I just want to make sure this fits through, as this is all going to be sealed back once I'm finished anyway, so it's not going to matter. With the placement of the hole for the filter piping to come through, I could then use a 1/2-inch bit and drill out 4 relief holes, and then use the jigsaw to remove the inner panel of the wall, and then use the same drill bit to follow the same process on the outside wall leading to where the motor would be outside. While test fitting everything, I figured out that the 31-gallon can I had for my collection system that was going to be outside was too tall for where the motor was going to mount. I couldn't mount the motor any higher due to the heater inside the shop, so I cut away some of the pallets to allow me to put in the can outside. All right, guys, so I had to go back and forth with this just a little bit. So the first issue I ran into was that, one, this is not completely secured. It's just kind of holding itself. This is pretty much mock fitting everything to make sure it's going to fit. The filter is right there. Hose comes out. Inlet into from the vacuum into the from the dust collector into the catch can will go here. From here, we'll go back up and back into the shop. So it will pull air down into here, back up, and then filter the air back into the shop as it should. The thing is I run into some issues. One, I have a 31-gallon can. I'm kind of glad now I didn't get a 55-gallon drum, because I was having trouble getting this to fit underneath here. I'm using the frame that I got from the unit's previous owner. It worked really well for this. It's set up to hold this piece here, everything kind of bolt together. So the idea now is going to be to secure this frame into place with some cross sections, and that will take care of that, as well as secure it to the ground, or secure it to the pallets, excuse me. The next part is going to be, or excuse me, what I had to do was, as you can see here, I was trying to put this on top of there. It didn't work. I cut out the first layer of the first pallet. It didn't work. It still wasn't enough. After fighting with it, I got tired of it and took good old reciprocating saw and, yeah, just cut a big chunk out. It can sit down there. It's got some spanners to keep it off the ground, but it's galvanized steel. It's made to be outside. It's not going to hurt anything. That being said, it's pretty well mocked up as far as the installation of the system for this. Before the end of the day, I'm hoping to get a roof coming over and tin coming most of the way down. I don't want to close it off completely because I'll lose a lot of the airflow into the box. I want to keep it cool, but I want to be able to shield it from the rain really well, just mainly this area up here. I'm not as worried about down here, so I'm gonna get back at it. Now I knew everything was going to fit into place correctly, I could go ahead and start bracing the motor and the platform from the motor. Now I didn't show the building of the platform because I didn't build it. It was given to me along with the system that I got from a friend. But I did make the supports and all of the bracing to make sure that the motor was secured into place extremely well. There's hardly any even vibration in it, and I'm not worried about it going anywhere or moving or anything. The next thing to do was to go ahead and cut the next relief hole into the outer wall of the shop. And this would be where the dust intake would go through the wall, and this would run over to my drops for all my specific tools. After the hole was cut, I started outside at the dust collector and started assembling the pipe. Now there was a lot of trial and error and cutting things down and seeing if they would fit properly and then readjusting, testing, and readjusting. If you're doing something similar to this, you'll find that the best way for you to do this is to mock up each piece at a time and figure out what fits your best needs at your shop and for your situation. You want as much straight piping as you can with as little flex pipe as possible. Now, I did have to add about 2 feet of flex pipe right by the wall, and this was just because I needed my actual dust collection piping to be about 6 inches higher than the inlet hole in the wall was. I couldn't cut any higher due to the header of the shop wall, so doing it this way was just the best option that I could come up with. But for the most part, there is only 45-degree angles. There is almost no 90-degree angles in the system, as 90-degree angles cause a sharp reduction in your system's airflow and suction. So I tried to minimize that as much as possible. And just like outside, each of the drops had to be test fit over and over and measured, and then small pieces removed and tried again, just to try to get the perfect layout so everything fit the best I could. One rule of thumb to keep in mind is that for every 90-degree drop that you have in piping, it is like adding another 10 feet to the piping overall and can cause drastic loss in suction. So after I got the first drop pretty much laid out, I moved on to the secondary and last drop on my system. I don't have many in my shop, as most of my tools use the Rockler hose due to the fact that most of them are mobile, and I'll go over that a little bit later in the video. But the best way I found of setting everything up was to mock everything up and then start securing it into place and sealing up all of the joints with the Gorilla Tape. This worked really well, and it also allowed me to make any adjustments that needed to be made, like swapping out blast gates, or if the angle of a drop needed to be changed just a little bit. So I found this was the absolute best way to do everything, and then start at one end of the shop and start sealing off all of the joints with the Gorilla Tape, and then using some steel hanger banding and holding the piping into place so it doesn't move around or vibrate or anything, so nothing will come loose later on unless I want to take it down. All right, guys, so everything is installed. This is going to be a temporary structure. I'm going to come back later and build a steel frame and all this stuff to house everything and make it look really nice. But this is materials I had on hand. The tin doesn't really have any holes in it, even though it does look rusty. But it's just to keep water from going down into the motor. So I want to show you guys a little closer on this. So I have my catch can here. Later on, I might wind up doing kind of like a thin baffle, or however you pronounce it, for this can to get some really good separation. Right now, it doesn't do too bad. It does have a little bit of circulation this way due to the inlets and outlet, but it could be better. So might try to improve that later on, but it does work. And I had to go with a garbage can instead of a 55-gallon drum due to how this had to be mounted, the height. I'll show you some more on the inside what I'm talking about with that here in a minute. But as you can see, I have the inlet for the air. Let's see here. I'm going to brighten it up for you guys. So as you can see, this tube comes down out of the inside of the shop and then into the collection bin. So what this does is it brings the dust into the collection bin being pulled from the dust collector. Now this is just a dust collector from like Harbor Freight's Central Machinery, I believe it is. This is the 2 horsepower, has the factory impeller and all that stuff, but it works pretty good. So far it's picking up really well and I like it so far, but I do want to upgrade this either the entire thing later on, or I might upgrade this to the Rikon impeller, I believe is what this can get as an upgraded impeller for higher CFM. But anyway, so the return is here going into the wall here onto the other side. And again, the vacuum here with a simple Y capped off. So pretty simple design here. And as you guys can see, brighten it up again here. So as you guys can see here, this is going into the shop and the motor is here. Sorry for the crazy lighting. This is outdoors. I can't quite control it. But this is all pretty waterproof. It rained really, really hard last night and nothing in here is wet. So that means it must have done its job at least somewhat. I do have the roof covered and only about halfway down because, like I said, I only need the motor to stay dry. I'm not worried about the can or anything getting wet. It's sealed. It's not going to really matter. Just this up here needs to stay dry. And all of this wood out here is pressure treated, so it won't really hurt anything. So let's step inside and I will show you the inside and how that works and how I have everything routed. Okay guys, so this is the inside. So we have our return filter here with the capture and the bag down here, or the funnel I guess you'd call it. Not honestly sure what that's called. Anyway, this is the central machinery one. This is the one that come with the motor and everything. This is, I believe, one of the Delta filters, but I may be wrong about that. I bought this system or got this system from another woodworker that had all of this set up, but this is one of the really good, I believe 3 or 5 micron filters. It really helps the airflow so much better than a bag. And what you're going to notice with this is that this setup here is not perfect. This bag is our secondary catch. There is a little bit in it, but I've been using it a good bit. So far separation's pretty good. And this allows for the clean air to come back inside. So the reason I set it up this way, an in and out system, is one, this is a small shop. I don't have a lot of room. So putting that extra 3 feet or 2 feet inside here that is outside really cuts into the room, and this is really the optimal place for my dust collection, as everything I need is on this side of the shop, and I don't want to block my breaker panel completely. I can still access my breaker panel from here with this here. The next part of that is like I said, if I put everything inside, instead of it being here where it stops and now I have all this room to work with, I'm going to lose another 2 or 3 feet. And in a shop that's only 28 foot long or so on the inside, 3 to 4 feet's a good bit of room. So space is at a premium. The idea is that with the return inside though, once I turn on the dust collection, the air is pulled out of whatever outlet I have going or whatever drop I have open. The air is being pulled out to the motor through the separator or the catch can outside, and then return through here. What that does is if there's heat or air in here, it allows me to not lose that, because if you just turn on your dust collection and have the motor outside and the filter outside and everything outside, it pulls all the air from inside the shop straight outside and lets it go into the atmosphere outside. Another thing you can run into, and I don't know honestly how much I would run into it on this building, is if you have a really airtight building, if your building is really tight and does not breathe really well, depending on the dust collection system, you have to worry about air starvation. If you're running your dust collector for more than just a few minutes, it will pull all the air out of the shop and there's not enough air coming in. So your pressure inside the shop will actually start trying to pull a vacuum on the inside of the shop, and you'll get negative pressure in the shop. And that's not really a good thing. It can cause problems with your motor and with your dust collection system. But with this system, I don't know that that'd be a big deal, being only a 2 horsepower system and not a gigantic CFM. But say if you had a, 6 horsepower or 5 horsepower system, a really big dust collection system, and don't have the return inside the building, it would definitely pull a vacuum on this building and cause negative pressure and cause air starvation to the motor. So this kind of negates all that. You're leaving all of the same air in here, but cleaning it and separating all the dust outside. Then everything is caught here that can be changed. This is a simple setup with just, honestly, a garbage bag. Don't need anything special. These are clipped to this, and this is easily removed in case I need to clean out my filter and all that stuff. And as you can see, I have the piping come running down behind my heater. Like I said, this is the optimal corner, so that's why I did all this stuff. But that's also one of the reasons why I wanted an in and out system, is to save space, but also back into the shop with the air return, because I save my AC, save my heat during the winter, and also I don't have to worry about those starvation issues of pulling too much air out of the building. So I'm going to go over the drops just a little bit and let you guys check that out and see how I have it run. Alright guys, so this is our first drop on the system. Now, I only have a couple of drops with 2 or 3 blast gates because most of the stuff in my shop is movable, it's mobile, so I don't need to have just fixed set stops and drops for the dust collection. I'll be using the Rockler hose to connect a lot of my tools, the table saw, the planer, the router table, all that stuff gets hooked up with the Rockler hose, and I'll show you that in a second. But anyway, this is the first drop. This drop actually comes straight across and then down. And as you can see, I've got 3 blast gates. What this does is it operates this complete drop as well as the 2 outlets or inlets, however you want to say, for that drop. This main blast gate here actually closes off this entire drop to allow for full suction at the other end at the Rockler hose that will go to the other tools. So I can open this and then open these blast gates individually to control these individually as well. This blast gate here goes over to the miter saw station. This is a down pull setup on here. There is a flex hose in here, so it's not perfectly optimal for the setup, but it works really well, to be honest. And this setup here controls, this blast gate controls only the miter saw. So if I keep that open, the miter saw is pulling now and I can make my cuts there. And then if I want to use the floor sweep, I can open this blast gate and use the floor sweep. And it has a couple baffles in there to kind of push the dust and dirt to the pipe and allow it to pick up better. But these work really well. I did not make these, but they're a really simple design. And honestly, they work extremely well. I'm really impressed with them. Also, you'll see here that I've got tape on the joints. I did not use PVC cement. The reason I didn't use PVC cement is because I want this entire system to be modular. If I would need to take the system apart and add a drop or move a drop somewhere or whatever happens to come in the future, depending on tools and needs and things like that, I can take this apart without having to destroy the pipe, cut it up, and buy new. I can just simply take these apart and then put them back together. I have not found any leaks with this tape. It has worked extremely well so far. We'll see how it does down the road, 5 or 6 months, but so far it's working really, really good, and I've had 0 problems out of it. Now, as you can see, I've got as much hard pipe in here as I can. Flex pipe will cost you some suction and air movement, so I tried to use as little flex pipe as possible. I do have a little here, but it's honestly just because I didn't have the proper fittings to go here to get the drop to fit perfect. This just made the fitting of the drop and this blast gate much, much simpler. So from this blast gate, if I leave it open, this drop is working. If I close it, that closes off this entire drop and allows full suction at the other end. So we'll run over there real quick and I'll show you how that is set up. Okay, so this is the secondary drop, or the second drop on the system. As you can see, I have another blast gate here with just it capped off at the top. I wanted to leave this capped and just kind of seal it here in case I need to add more down at the further end of the shop. But for right now, this drop is all I really need for the Rockler hose here. This is the Rockler 28-foot collapsible. So really, really, really handy tool. As you can see, I have the rocker end with the dust on the brush boot, I guess you'd call it, on the end of here right now, as well as the sweep here, the drop for this. What is really nice about this setup is that with this right here, where it is pretty much in the center of the shop, this one hose will reach every corner of the shop. That is really nice for cleaning up and doing secondary quick cleanup, because now I can just sweep over to the floor drop, the floor sweep. That picks that up. If there's anything that I can't get to, I can use this. Or if I need to do secondary cleanup, say on the work table or the lathe or on the miter saw station, this works great. So this is a really, really, really handy setup. And it's pretty simple. It works just the same way, but this is just at the end. Now that being said, it does lose a little bit through here because it is such a long hose. That will get negated and taken care of if I can ever get the upgrade done on the impeller, or if I upgrade to like a 3 horsepower system or something. But this is much better than that little 1 horsepower Delta I had used forever. It had trouble pulling through this hose regardless, much less after all the extra piping and drops. So this works really, really well. It's a really handy setup, but that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope this has been helpful to you. Maybe if you have a small shop and you're looking to do a dust collection system, you could use some of these ideas for your setup. This works really well for my particular setup, and I love it. Not only that, but it's extremely quiet. If I close the roll-up door and turn the dust collection on, it is very, very quiet, especially compared to having the full dust collection in here like I had before. So, yeah, big improvement there. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope it's helpful. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. And I'm going to get out of here, guys, and try to work on some more stuff, I guess. Have a little more fun. We'll see you on the next one. Later.